One.
Welcome back, everybody. It's two guys and a stack of comics. I'm Mike over there with my buddy Reed. Reed, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Looking forward to us talking on canon and continuity today. I
You
know.
know what? I was reading through this week's copy of Absolute Flash, and lo and behold, almost out of nowhere,
Yep.
you get this ad, and what's going on here? 90 years of stories told in four unforgettable issues. The new history of the DC universe, brought to you by Mark Waid, chronicles the journey of the world's greatest superheroes.
No, I mean it's
So,
a fantastic undertaking, and we're gonna probably treat this like a bigger deal than it probably will justify sales wise. But I do think you and I being comic book nerds, this is a in all honesty, more like a Super Bowl kind of event for us because this is something we have wanted DC to do for a long time, is try to organize the canon, try to give answers as to this happens and this happens and this happens and try because we've had so long now where things just don't make sense. And I will say, look, there's no way Mark Wade's going to be able to make it all make sense. However, I appreciate the endeavor in that, and we'll kind of talk about our thoughts on why this works, why it won't, kind of everywhere we're at with this. But I think one thing you have to do, and I've noticed this with my son, he plays some of these, what's it like, Warhammer and stuff like that things. One of the things is always they have these source books, these guidebooks. I notice on the
yep.
video games that he plays, you go in and they have all kind of like codexes about who the characters are, their back, and that's the stuff that he gets into. That's the lore. He wants to know it all. I remember being that way with Star Wars when I was younger, loving reading the expanding universe of novels and hey, it's Boba Fett's not just some guy who appeared for 5 seconds in Empire Strikes Back. He's got this rich history and all of that until, of course, Disney threw all that out. But this is a huge endeavor that Mark Wade is taking on. Mike, do you think this is? I know we both think it's a good idea. Do you think it's actually achievable, though? Like, do you think he actually is going to be able to do it, or do you think this is inevitably just going to make more people mad than it will make happy?
Well, on comic book YouTube, it's going to give a lot of people a sounding board to be mad about it.
Hmm.
But there is no denying that it needed to be done. It probably should have been done 25 years ago,
Hmm.
but it's just one of those things that you kick the can down the road for so long. Eventually, it's got to be done, especially with all the moves that the big two made. And nobody wants to bite the bullet and do it. And it's going to be a dirty job. But if anybody could pull it off right now, it would be Mark Wade. Mark has been there longer than probably most anybody,
Hmm.
and he knows what he was there for a lot of the devolution of the canon for this universe. He watched it fall to pieces, and you could tell over his tenure there were times where he tried to set things right. But I think his heart is always going to be in the right place, and you couldn't have picked a better guy to do it. So I was excited to see his name there as the one who was tasked with the dirty job that somebody had to do,
Yeah.
and I felt a lot more at ease when I saw his name on it. Now, if it had been somebody else trying to do it, I would have been more apprehensive. But lo and behold, like what people have been saying in us, even on this channel for 2 years, it's got to be done. You've got to reset continuity. You got to make it make sense because it's driving people crazy, and it's what it's going to do. Hopefully, I mean we're only one issue in.
25% of the
Yeah,
way through.
what it's going to do is lay a great foundation for future writers, which is desperately needed. You got to be pulling your hair out as a writer in any one of the big two, when you get a character whose continuity has been completely tweaked beyond recognition, and now you've got to write next month's magazine, and you know, it's going to allow writers to create more coherent stories that make sense across the broader spectrum of all the heroes in the universe. And so, yeah, I'm all for this, and I'm glad Mark's doing it.
The only way that this will end up being a negative is if it's much like DC's previous continuity attempts where people just ignore it. And so I think the biggest thing with this is going to be, is there actual buy-in for DC that, hey, guys, these are the foundational building blocks. This is the order that it happened. This is what is canon. This is what is not. And they actually stick to it. Otherwise, it is just going to be a useless four-issue series of, well, someone tried. I think the big thing
Um,
with this is there have been so many events in DC that, look, no comic book is useless because if you enjoyed it, it's a great comic. But I do think for I can't tell you whether have read DC comics my whole life. I can't tell you whether the new 52 is canon or not anymore. I don't know. I think it is, but I don't know if Rebirth erased that or not. I don't know if Rebirth is canon anymore after DC All In. I don't know if the pre-crisis stuff counts or the post-crisis stuff. And that's the thing is, it's kind of this weird, especially when you care about a character the way you do Flash and I do Batman, of like, I can't tell you whether that happened. Is Grant Morrison's run canon? I don't know because people de-age and then re-age and events get forgotten. And all I hope this does is it kind of puts things in alignment where I don't expect four issues to tell me, hey, all 1,000 issues of Batman, and we're going to go through what works and what doesn't. But if you can at least let me know the big touch points that happened, like this was in a pocket universe that got erased, this got reset, then I think that's a huge thing to have. And that what we've currently had with canon and continuity, and I think we're seeing fans go to the ultimate universe and go to the absolute universe because it's clean, it's easy to get into. And while you're never going to be able to do that fully with something that's got 80 years of baggage, if you can at least have something like this, where you can go, hey, read that, and that'll kind of let you know where you're at. And you can at least have that, hey, if I pick up an omnibus of new 52 Flash comic books, I can kind of piece where this takes place in relation to where we are now. And if you can do that, that's big because, we make a lot of sports analogies. Right now, what we have with canon and continuity would be like if you threw two football teams on the field, you gave them no rules, you let them do whatever the heck you want, you could score on whatever you wanted, there's no penalties, you can have as many players on the field as you want at any time. Some team can go, well, a tackle is worth 5 points. No, a field goal is worth 9. It'd be chaos and it wouldn't be entertaining for anybody other than, well, you get to see the Raiders and the Bears play or whatever. And that's kind of where we're at right now is we've had no rules, we've had no canon, we've had no continuity, and all that's really keeping us there is the presence of nostalgia, like a football thing with the Raiders and the Bears, except it's Batman and the Flash or Superman and Wonder Woman. And so if this can kind of bring order a bit to the chaos, where at least as a reader or a potential new reader, you can be like, hey, here's this Superman comic I picked up. Where does it go? And you can at least silo it to like, well, this is part of this. I think that's huge. I think that's really important.
for those of you who, maybe, I don't know how many of these your local comic shop ordered. I was very fortunate in that I had a dear friend go scouting for one. I got the blank cover version, but I got a copy. These, I mean, if this sticks around, these will be sought out. And you hooked me right away, Mark Wade, with making Barry Allen
Barry Allen, the narrator.
the
Yeah.
one. And don't let me forget, at the end of this, we got to talk about how this sets up the DC universe across different media. But right now, we're going to get into the comic, and Barry Allen is the narrator of this story because why? Because he was there at Crisis, and he's the character who's kind of seen it all. Both Old and new.
He even notes in the thing, I've been a part of so many crises and have experienced different things that he's the and I think in a real life connection, what's great too is Barry's importance with Showcase and what he did in reviving a superhero, even in a real life sense, makes him the perfect character to kind of
Yeah.
chronicle the DC universe.
And of course, Mark Waid is a veteran of writing Flash stories. And
Yeah.
so it's just, it's perfect. And, I love how he and his team, and I know he gave thanks to another person in here, and forgive me, I'm forgetting their name. They left no stone unturned to try and put this thing together. And in my mind, I was thinking this visual, Reed. I was thinking the serial killer with the cork board and the little things of yarn going from one to the other.
No,
That must have taken up an entire 2 or 3 walls of
there's that
Mark
very
Waid's
famous
office.
Always Sunny in Philadelphia thing where they've got the guy at the board and he's trying to explain and he's got all the million letters
Yeah,
on there.
yeah, and the little
I think that's kind of where this had to be. And what I appreciate again, me and you talked about this earlier. In the back, there's about 10 to 12 pages of where they
yeah.
cite, hey, this is where we got this from. This is what we're trying to integrate.
This is
And I
the
think again
corkboard
that's
right here. Like
yeah.
this,
It's really cool
put
to
a
see them
thumbtack
put that in.
here, put some yarn to this picture, and then put some yarn over to that one. Yeah.
Well, and I think we can kind of, you should dive into the issue. I think we can talk away about the three main kind of points of contention with this or things that we can talk to. One, he's got an impossible job because you've got to incorporate not only DC and all the mess that there in terms of crisis, pre-crisis, New 52, Rebirth, so many other events. You also then have the Milestone universe that Dwayne McDuffie was largely responsible for that's been created and has folded into DC. You've got their attempts to bring Watchmen. We'll talk about that as well. And that you had Doomsday Clock and Rebirth and all of that integration. You've got, stuff that has
The
happened
fourth
in terms of,
world. The
yeah,
fourth world. Jack
the Fourth
Kirby.
World Jack Kirby. You've got
He
the
puts that
Charlton
in there.
characters. You've got the Wildstorm universe. You have so many things that were never intended to be together that you somehow have to weave together. I think the huge revelations you also get. Superman can't live in 2025 as he does in the comics and also have debuted in 1930, right? Because that would mean we'd have to lose Lois and Jimmy and Perry White and Bruce Wayne and Alfred and any human character. And so there are some changes that take place in terms of Superman's no longer the first character. So I guess we can start with that point of contention because I know there will be some people, and we're seeing this on the film end too, where Superman's no longer the first superhero in DC Comics. Now we've known he wasn't the first super being for a while. They've always had the hey, Vandal, Savage, and Ra's al Ghul were ancient and stuff like that. But Mike, does it bug you that they've taken that from Superman officially in canon, that he's no longer the debut superhero, even though that's kind of been loosely established for a while?
It did at first, but I'm gonna roll with it because I think Mark's gonna put him in the right place and make it make sense. Because you're right. I mean, Superman, maybe he doesn't age like normal people do, but his cast of supporting characters that really make him who he is, would all be long dead. They'd be in their 80s or 90s or 105
Well,
or whatever.
the huge problem is Bruce Wayne. In that, I could see them going, you know what? Yeah, we're going to treat Lois like she lived in the 30s, and Perry, and you might be able to work with that. You could do the same with Wonder Woman. But having Bruce Wayne have to be dead is what they can't work, and you can't have Bruce and Clark and Diana have that relationship if they debuted in the 30s and Bruce debuted now. And so it's a necessary evil. Again, part of it is no one ever thought when Action Comics hit the stands that 80 something years later we'd still be telling Superman tales and Batman tales and all this. It
No,
wasn't
they
designed
didn't,
for that.
they didn't even put Superman on Action Comics #2.
Yeah. No one thought these things would last the way they
No,
would.
nobody knew.
And so the fact that look, it does bug me that he's technically no longer the first superhero, but you have to. If you want to, unless you're going to commit to, hey, Superman's just done, which I don't want at all, then you do have to explain how does he exist in the era of the internet and the cell phone And so, yeah, maybe it decanonizes some of those where he's, selling war bonds and stuff like that. But I think you have to. You can't do that. I think the other part, they sort of changed that Diana, not in the JSA, that was actually her mom dressed up as, so her mom technically, I guess, becomes the first Wonder Woman. That one is a little bit weirder. I understand they have to keep it because there's too much JSA where she's there. Did that one bug you that they make that change? How does that flow with you on it? Because again, I think it's a huge relationship thing in that you can't
That
have that Diana was around 80 years before Bruce and Clark debuted.
that one bugged me less.
Okay.
Because we always got to put Soups as the progenitor of all of DC Comics and all superheroes in general. But these are the messy things that you have to work out when you've got to redo continuity, and it's not an easy job, and that's why they keep kicking the can down the road. But eventually, they know that they all have to do it. But I love the way he put in. I
Oh,
love the way
no,
he
the way they
wove
integrated everybody was really cool. I
the
think
fourth
that's
world, and and in the Sandman, how he integrated the Sandman with the original Sandman and the Neil Gaiman Sandman and the Spectre. I like how he wove it together.
no, he did a good job in terms of trying to honor as much as you could. And I think that's, there's no character should get forgotten. They address the Old West characters, they address the ancient characters. They bring that Perpetua character from Scott Snyder's first thing and make her relation to the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor. Where
And
so
the war characters.
yeah, the war characters, you get Sergeant Rock, you get the losers. I think even and this is the kind of the messy point at the end, and they do the Project Superman, which is tied to Doomsday Clock, which is tied to Watchmen and Doctor Manhattan's influence. You and I love Watchmen. No secret on this channel if you've watched, we love Watchmen. We talk about it quite a bit. It's an interesting thing in that I love Watchmen. I hated Doomsday Clock. I didn't like that attempt at all. It to me was one of those things that when they first did the tease in DC Rebirth, it was exciting for about 5 seconds until you're like, oh wait, that wouldn't work. It's kind of like, and you and I were talking about this earlier. It's sort of like if they did a tease that because George Lucas created both, that Han Solo or Indiana Jones was going to show up in a Star Wars movie, and there'd be 5 seconds where you go, oh, that'd be cool, until you really think about it, and you're like, wait, that kind of ruins Indiana Jones. He doesn't belong there. This is
Yeah.
stupid. These two things don't mix. And I think that was Watchmen, despite Jeff Johns making his best effort that he could. Watchmen does not belong in the DC universe in terms of integrated with Superman. However, they do have to do it. And I think that's the other thing is while I didn't like seeing the whole Project Superman thing in there because that was out of Doomsday Clock, that was a huge event. They sold a lot of issues. Rebirth had a fluctuation point based on that. The current volume of Batman dealt with that the button issue. So even if you're reading Batman 160 about 100 issues ago, if you read that same run, the Watchmen were involved. Mike, do you like that he chose to keep that, or do you wish that maybe he had taken the opportunity to write it out? Like, what are your thoughts on any integration of that?
My gut feeling is I wish he could have just left it off to the side. I'm with Alan Moore on that one. I wish he kind of would have left it to the side, but you can't. I mean, and that's why this is such a dirty job.
Mm-hmm.
You
No,
know,
he has to, every bad decision and bad run and cash grab and sales ditch effort that they've done and shock value story and poor writer who made a bad continuity error, he's got to kind of try. And so that's the thing that will be weird to me on this. And look, the reviews have been pretty decent on this. As this goes, I am sure there will be things that make folks mad. And I'm not here to tell you, if it was really important to you that Action Comics one established that Superman's the absolute first superhero of DC, and this frustrates you that he's not anymore, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong. All I would say is, like you said, this is a really difficult task. Someone had to do it, though. And that's, I think you and I see this with sports at times where you watch things and it's just broken. And I kind of take one from baseball. I love baseball. It's one of my favorite sports to watch. I'm a huge White Sox fan. Baseball used to be really painful to watch a couple years ago for some folks, though, because they didn't have a pitch clock. And everyone knew this was an issue. And they didn't want to integrate it, but you'd have where the batter would stop and adjust his gloves for no reason for 30 seconds. And then the pitcher would wait for 30 seconds and then decide not to throw it. And you had these games stretching to 4.5 to 5 hours. And for hardcore fans like me and some older folks who love baseball, that was fine. But for newer folks, it's like, dude, I'm not here for 4 hours. And so they integrated a pitch clock, and the players complained, and the purists complained, and a lot of people weren't happy about it. But you know what? Baseball's a lot faster now. It's 2.5 hours pretty much across the dot for the games. It's a lot more accessible. The ratings have been better, and it's a better experience. And while you hate that baseball had to do it, someone had to have the cojones to step up and go, no, guys, this is a problem. It needs to get fixed. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I think Mark Waid is trying to do here. And what I appreciate DC doing is someone had to go, you know what, guys, we've got to set what canon is. I think
I
that's
know.
that's the big thing is for comic books, the hardest thing that you and I've complained about with canon and continuity is we've always just said this, we've used the same phrase. There should be someone telling people this doesn't work, this doesn't fit. It's your whole job, right? It looks like they finally found someone. And if they stick to it, I can't get mad at it because we've been calling for this for years, and you have to have order to the chaos. And so I appreciate the heck out of it. I don't know if I'm gonna love it. And if they do something stupid 3 issues from now and go like the first Batman wasn't Bruce Wayne, I'll probably be in here just as mad as everybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
But if Mark Waid does his research as he appears to, then man, I can't really complain about it. It's a project I'm more excited about than I thought I would be because it's desperately needed.
Yeah. The man is a walking DC encyclopedia. He can pull this off. And I'm rooting for him. I know a lot of people are. I'm kind of afraid as to what the internet will say about it, because they always pick everything apart. But you just got to take the high road and you got to roll with it. But I'm really excited because this really, I mean, with the success of the absolute universe for DC, much more successful than the ultimate universe for Marvel,
Yeah, they've
with
both been good, for sure.
with a great new jumping off point or jumping on point for the cinematic universe
Hmm.
starting this summer, and with a continuity update.
Yeah.
uh, DC is poised very well. I mean, if they can pull these three things off and get a hit movie and get their cinematic universe kickstarted, they can clean up their continuity, which they're doing, and they have a new
This absolute universe for new folks to
universe
dive
going
into.
well. I mean, that's kind of firing on all cylinders, whereas Marvel is kind of struggling right now to figure out which way their cinematic universe is going to go. Their continuity is still messy and is going to need a cleanup, and their ultimate universe is not doing as well as it did 8 months ago, 10 months ago.
No, it seems like it's running. I mean, again, I think the sales are still great on Spider-Man, but I think some of the other ones look like they're losing steam a bit. I think the great thing that DC did, and you and I did a video on this almost a year ago, where Scott Snyder and Jeremy Adams, I believe, and or Josh Williamson and Scott Snyder sat down and did that whole DC All In video. And you and I kind of scoffed at it a bit, like, sounds great, guys, but we've seen this movie before. What I
Yeah.
will say is we're almost at a year. They have seemed to do everything they'd said they were going to. And that while there's still some stupid comics being published that make me scratch my head, they brought Jim Lee back for Batman. I can debate the quality of it, but that's all in. You got Jim Lee to do Batman series. You brought Jeff Loeb back as a writer. You did a sequel to The Long Halloween. You put Jeremy Adams on multiple books. You've got good art teams working. You're trying to organize your continuity. You put together 5 or 6 absolute universe titles that have really good talent behind it and are hitting with fans. The Batman books are hitting on all cylinders right now. You've had JSA do really well. The New Gods has done really well. They really seem to have done what they, and I would have thought 6 months in I'd be like all in. Yeah, right. I'll say right now I'm reading more DC comics than I have probably in 20 years than I have before. I think, maybe when the New 52 started I might have been reading a little bit more. This is the most DC books I've ever been pulling. It's working. They seem to be catching up. And like you pointed out, the absolute universe sales, you and I can get on here and debate quality of those all we want to. The sales are speaking 8 issues, 9 issues in that these are still moving. That we regularly have a Wonder Woman comic and a absolute Martian Manhunter comic that are at the top. A Martian Manhunter #1 in the main continuity probably sells pretty good. Then by issue 2 or 3, it's off the charts and it's canceled by issue 6. The fact that they're like recommissioning more issues of Absolute Martian Manhunter is crazy. The fact that Wonder Woman 9 issues in is still near the top of the sales charts. The fact that, Absolute Batman seems to be outpulling Batman right now. It's crazy, but it really does seem that they thought all this through and it's working. And this continuity cleanup, man, if they can get this aligned, I think like the future is bright. I think for DC. And again, is it? I think this is where the negativity piece kicks in. Is it going to be what it was 40 years ago as comics? No, right? The sales numbers are not going to be there, but it's way better than it was 10 years ago. It's way better than it was
Yeah.
5 years ago. I think it's way better than it was 3 or 4 years ago for DC. And so hopefully they can get it cleaned up. But we'll be interested. What are your guys' thoughts below? What do you guys think about canon and continuity? What do you think about this attempt by Mark Waid? Do you like it? Did you hate it? If you're completely opposite from us, where you're like, man, this was unneeded, let us know. We'll never pretend to be the experts, just two guys giving our opinions on here, folks. Thank you, as always, for watching. God bless you. We will catch you in our next video.
Thanks, everybody.